Let us now talk about the eye on the region's emerging sector. We're now going to hear from Martin. Martin Pertab is a senior petroleum economist at the Ministry of Natural Resources in Guyana, a country I really want to go and visit. I've been invited a lot. It's beautiful, and I'm going to make it my duty to go. Martin is an amazing resource. He has a master's in economics. We're covering all the degrees here from New Mexico State University, and he's actually pursuing his PhD. So the next time he speaks to us, he will be doctor. And he's pursuing it in energy economics at the University of Aberdeen. And guess what his research is on? He's focused on Dutch disease and the structural transformation on oil-rich developing countries. Look at that, coming straight to us from Guyana. Martin, over to you. We want to hear what you have to tell us about the happenings in Guyana.
Hello, good afternoon to you all. Let me first start by extending heartfelt appreciation to the organizers of ICAC for the invitation to speak on the development of the oil and gas sector in Guyana. Since 2015, the year before struck oil in commercial quantities, Guyana has become, if not the most talked about newcomer of the oil and gas industry. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Bobby Kosai, who is also the Senior Petroleum Coordinator here at the Ministry, and is also part of the Ministry Management Program. I know the time is quite limited, so we will endeavor to get our message through within the allocated time. Thereafter, of course, we'll be delighted to take your questions. The first slide here shows the delineation of our resources, the oil and gas. To date, of the total area that has been allocated or available for allocation, so to speak, only less than half has been allocated, and of course that's in the gray. The yellow are the ones that has been allocated. The Stabroek block, which is the most prolific of all, is the most active, operated by three main shareholders, which includes ExxonMobil, Hescaya, and CNOOC. Exxon has the largest share of 45%, followed by Hess 30%, and of course by CNOOC 25%. The Forced Petroleum Agreement of the Stabroek block was inked in 1999 and later renegotiated in 2016. Since Forced Oil in 2019, the pace of development of the Stabroek block area has been moving quite rapidly. Guyana has made 4 new discoveries, 3 in 2020 and 2 in 2021. Just recently, I think 1 month ago, we made that last discovery, taking the total discovery to 20 and reserve, that is oil and gas reserve, to well over 9 billion barrel of oil. This is, of course, the largest oil discovery in the past decade. Today, the rate of success has been quite successful. We are at a rate of 80%, 80% success. Overall, the economics of Stabroek block has been quite favorable also, with 3 of the developed well, which is Liza Phase 1, Liza Phase 2, and the Payara, having a break-even at around $35, $25, and $32 per barrel, respectively, which is, of course, quite favorable. As it relates to the latter 2, which is Payara 2 and Liza Phase 2, the Liza Phase 2, those developments are on track. We have the Liza Phase 2 project, which will commence production by the end of 2021, and Payara is online for production by 2024. So basically, this graph basically shows us here's the time trend from 2020 to 2027. Some of our projected capacity production rate. By 2025, we are expected to have at least 4 wells operating, producing way above 500,000 barrels of oil per day. By 2027, we are expected to see at least six of those FPSOs producing out there on our shores. That of course going to take us way above that 1 million barrels of oil per day. Currently, only 1 of those wells and FPSOs are operating, and that is of course Liza Phase 1. Our daily production rate is around roughly 120 to 130 barrels of oil per day. So an important point to stress here is that there's a tremendous prospect of future discoveries in the area. In fact, just recently, the new discovery was located beneath an existing oil find. According to some of the latest estimates, the total basin potential could be more than 2 times than what is actually available. As it relates to exploration and appraisal, we are expected to see an additional 10 exploration wells and appraisal by the end of 2021. That is on our, of course, that's for this year. By the end of this year, we expect to see those things. So this slide basically just show some of the physical indicators of the field. Resources is roughly 9 billion barrels of oil. The 80% success rate that I've mentioned recently. By 2026, we are expected to target 750,000 barrels of oil per day, and of course, the cash flow of that starboard block is expected to be pegged around $2.5 billion of operating cash. It's highly resilient, a 10% rate at $35 a barrel, and along with a 20% rate of return, which of course is a high return. Currently, the amount of jobs that the sector has been supporting is way over the 2000 limit. So in this slide here, with the advent of yellowtail by 2025, which is shown on the right-hand side of the graph, by 2026, we would be approaching the 1 million barrel of oil equivalent. Even more interestingly, because of the exceptional reservoir quality, we expect to see a reduction in gross development costs of Liza Phase 1 from 4.4 billion to 3.5, which is of course quite interesting given the fact that the geological formation of this copper block is way, let's put in other words, cheaper to operate compared to other geological formation of other countries. So here I will stop and ask my colleague to complete the presentation. As I said before, he's the senior petroleum coordinator here. We both work together. I'm just a brief introduction. He's also doing his PhD at Aberdeen, so we came a long way. So Bobby, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Martin. I know we have limited time, but we wanted to bring all of the information to you and to your audience on what is happening in Guyana. As you can see from this particular slide, what is demonstrated here is that over the next 10 years, working in the offshore development fields of Guyana is an investor's paradise, simply because break-even price for all of the fields moving forward are pretty low as compared to what it was previously. Those of you who are paying attention to the oil market, you know that oil price is over that $70 mark, which is very good for oil producing and oil exporting country. We, as Guyanese, we can be proud of that at this point in time. 5 or 6 years ago, we were not, because we were importing all of our fuel and we were not an oil producing economy. But moving forward, we can see that the rate of return, the internal rate of return, the NPV moving forward for these projects allow for both the government and the investors to make good profits. Guyana, of course, is now an oil producing and exporting economy. As such, we are susceptible to changes that are happening on the international market. One of it is the oil price volatility. If we can all recall that last year, in the month of April, oil price was set at negative close to 40, which means that there were more supply on the market than there were demand. And we all know that is as a result of the great pandemic and the lockdown that we were in. But moving forward, we can see that the demand for petroleum and petroleum-related products are increasing. And as such, Guyana's positioned in a very lucrative market to allow for greater exploration. To date, we have 20 commercial discoveries, which will allow for the development of different fields over time. Hence, you will hear when the operators and the investors speak, they will talk about 10 FPSO, they will talk about moving towards 1 billion barrels of oil being produced in Guyana by 2030 or even before. That is simply because of the rapid rate of increase in the development activities and production activities taking us forward as a country. The one thing to caution here, while Guyana is advancing on the petroleum side, we want to maximize the economic benefits that are happening in the country. As such, certain policies, regulations, legislation, and programs are being put in place to allow this emerging economy to not face the effects of the Dutch disease or those of the resource curse syndrome. Lastly, we wanted to highlight to you the other aspect of the oil and gas coin, that is talking about the gas to energy project. Some of you may have heard that Guyana is advancing on the development of a pipeline from the offshore field, which will land in Guyana and then go across country towards the development of a gas power plant. This, of course, is very critical to this economy. Guyana has always been hampered by the cost of electricity. That cost is not only financial cost, but in terms of the stable supply. of electricity in this country. We have not been able to advance to heavy manufacturing. As such, we have not been able to have a good industrialized state. This project, which will take us to 2024 and come on stream sometime before the middle of 2024, will allow Guyana to become an industrial state and also advance the development of the manufacturing industry in this country. Many of the value-added products that we have to import today, by 2026-27, we should see them being produced in country, which of course will add more value to the economy. And as such, that is one simple example of ensuring that we can produce and become self-sustained and not take on the effects of the Dutch disease, not the resource curse syndrome. So these are the key information we wanted to present to you, and we thank you for giving us the opportunity to highlight the development of the hydrocarbons industry in Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't seen any questions, but I wanted one clarification. As somebody that, I pretend I know nothing when I hear these amazing presentations. What is the Dutch disease? Can you tell us a little more, just for some of us that don't know what that is?
So, okay, the Dutch disease is essentially when laborers in the manufacturing, we call it the non-resource tradable sector, moves out of manufacturing towards services and agriculture. In the pattern of structural transformation, manufacturing is presumably the most important one, given the fact that most developed countries that are developed today went through that stage of development whereby laborers move from agriculture then to manufacturing, and because of productivity, then of course as economic growth take place, then they move into services. The Dutch disease essentially disrupt that pattern. So there are two reasons as to why that might happen. One, for example, let's say for example the case of an oil-rich country, an increase of revenue flow might of course increase government spending. Government spending might lead to higher spending in the services sector, construction and so on. So because of that, you're going to inflate the value of that sector. So essentially what happens, you're going to have laborers now moving out of manufacturing towards services. Manufacturing cannot compete, prices goes up, the sector crunches, and that's the Dutch disease. Another angle of the Dutch disease also could be seen in the exchange rate. As money comes in, that is why Dutch disease is not only limited to oil and gas. It could be a tourism country, a country that depends on tourism, any country that depends that has a high level of foreign exchange. So let's say, for example, the revenue comes in because of the fact that the domestic currency would depend on the demand of that currency. More foreign exchange chasing the domestic currency going to inflate that price. So because manufacturing is tradable, and of course most of those goods of value added would be sold on the foreign market, now you would find that cost locally would go up. So of course higher costs on the local market, on the international market, going to reduce competitiveness, and again you have a crunch in that non-resource tradable sector. And in countries that depend heavily on manufacturing, when that crunches take place, when that contraction takes place, now you're going to find the country is in a position because one of the major sector has been constricted, has been reduced. Then you're going to find the impact on economic growth, and that is essentially the Dutch disease.
Wow, thank you for that, because I always thought it was oil and gas. You've woken me up to the fact that it could be, a lot of other industries. That's why I tell you, these sessions are amazing. I mean, thank you so much for giving us some information. And it sounds like Guyana is a place to be, because you're not going to have Dutch disease since you're doing your PhD. Look at that. Thank you so much. So I have a question for Martin, though, but you can always chime in. If the country produces its own oil, what other factors cause Guyana to be able to improve? What other factors would cause Guyana to be unable to improve and stabilize its electricity/energy sector? Isn't fuel one of the main costs to energy production? So Martin, that was for you because it said Guyana. Any comments on that?
Hi, thank you for the question. Yes, indeed, fuel has played an important role in when it comes to the production of providing electricity. But Guyana is moving towards a low carbon development economy. And while we recognize the fact that, of course, we're producing oil and access to that will be much more cheaper, because of the 2015 Paris Agreement, in which Guyana is a signatory to that agreement, we see it fit for us to expand our energy matrix to include not only fossil but also to expand on our renewable. Sorry. So we will have solar, hydro also, which will also play an important role, and then of course the gas to energy would also add to that. So the fact that of course we have crude, but of course the gas, which is also much cheaper and much cleaner, and of course that is um, associated gas. It will be more feasible for us to go that route rather than focusing on heavy crude or fuel when it comes to the production of electricity.
Excellent. So, give us some food for thought in the region because we now have more energy, more oil producers. So thank you for that, Martin. Thank you so much. We now have come to the end of the sessions, and we are now going to be moving into the conference close. But before we do, I want to remind you as participants, please go and fill out and make sure you do the evaluation so we know what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want us to improve. We also have to thank our sponsors. Thank you, ACCA, Platinum sponsor. Thank you, EY and PwC for the gold sponsorship. Thank you, CIPHA for the silver. Thank you, Deloitte and CPA Canada for the bronze. And again, thank you for being such an amazing audience, for sticking around on a Friday afternoon where we promised you, and I hope we delivered, a passionate afternoon where we learned about the Dutch disease, we learned about blockchain, we learned about the Grace legacy, we learned how to re-engineer, and we learned about the amazing Guyana and Suriname. So I'm Alison Peart, wishing you an amazing weekend and good health, and see you next year. Over to you, David.